Did you hear what I said, Miss Kubelik? I absolutely adore you.
Shut up and deal.
Hello. Welcome back to 5225, 52 Weeks of Loving Movies. This is week, whatever week it is, because here's a little fact, people, friends. We're recording this in February. So if you're wondering, hey, why does Matt still have two eyes? Or, why is
Dylan's still a Yankee fan? Dylan's still in America? Dylan's in a house?
right? It's like I thought Dylan was off living a pirate life after he took over that cruise ship.
I hope you announced to your fan base that like I left for a job and that it's not like, oh yeah, we don't have Dill around here anymore. They're gonna be like, who's that guy the annoying guy who doesn't shut up? Like, why hasn't he been around in a while? But those who don't know, like, yeah, I'm in the middle of an ocean right now, and I'm on this channel in October. This is some weird like Matrix, like I don't even know. It's cool. I feel like I'm in the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, he is off on a cruise as the head entertainer, sort of. We're gonna call him that.
Entertaining heads, hearts, minds, all of it.
Yeah, all of it. Entertaining there, and so I knew that I was gonna be doing this week of my favorite movies, and I needed him, so I was like, listen, before you leave, we have to record one of these. So
it's like a Gone in 60 Seconds thing. It's like, you leave tomorrow. Come on, let's go. We're recording this a week before I leave, so
yeah, that's true.
But it is urgent. It's like, okay, we got to do this. Yeah.
So we are living in the past right now. So who knows what's changed? So if we say anything that seems anachronistic, that's why. Also, just a note: if the robot war is happening right now, I warned everyone that video of the guys kicking that robot dog, making it fall over all the time, was gonna be a problem for us, and that's what's happened, I'm sure.
I know this is like the sentimental moment where we look back at your favorite movies, but I just want to make a bold prediction right now and make my bold summer box office predictions. Is that Superman is going to win summer box office, Fantastic Four is going to come very close number 2, and Snow White's going to bomb. That's my prediction. I don't even know if Snow White's coming out in the summer, but I think Snow White's going to bomb. Those are my guesses for the year. Let's see how well I predicted that. We'll only time will tell.
I think I think it's the opposite. I think Snow White's probably not going to do very well, even though I do have an interest in seeing it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe my review is already out, or maybe I have a review out.
Maybe I've married Snow White. Maybe I'm Mr. White. Who knows?
Maybe Dylan White. But I think it's going to be the other way. I think Fantastic Four is going to be the number one. I think Superman's going to come very close. So let's see. In October, when we're watching this back, let's see.
I'm gonna spit on my hand and like a little handshake through the camera there. Yeah,
like Scott Conlon. Yeah. All right. So that was a Newsies reference.
I got you. I knew that.
I know you knew that. All right. So so what we're doing here is, and I'm sure that some of my other videos have come out this week. I don't know when exactly this is coming out. I just know
I want to be the
October,
centerpiece.
The week of my birthday.
I want to be the centerpiece. I want a few videos before, a few videos after. So I'm just like this perfect little surprise in the middle where they're like, that guy.
So happy Wednesday, everyone.
I love how I dictated that. You can do whatever you want, my friend. I don't
care. So we're going through my favorite movies, and I thought, every week on this show, I talk about movies that I watched and how I feel about them. But these movies that we're talking about here are movies that are my favorites. So why not bring my friends on to talk about my favorite movies instead of just listening to me talk about my favorite movies? Because I'm sure everybody's heard me talk about my favorite movies at some point.
And of course, Matt always picks one he's never seen. So for this week, his favorite movie he's never seen is The Apartment. He's never heard of it. He's never seen it before. So I'm here to tell him what it's about.
That's right. No, yeah, there we go. No, the movie for this week is The Apartment, directed by someone. Who was it? Billy Wilder, my favorite director. That's right.
I thought you genuinely blanked for a second. Like, he's got a lot going on in his life, but for him to forget that, I'm gonna be calling you Still Alice. I mean, that was sad. I was very worried for you there.
No, it's directed by Billy Wilder, who many of you probably know is my favorite director. And this is my favorite movie of his because it's one of my top 5 favorite movies. So Dylan, how did you come across The Apartment for the first time?
Ooh, that's actually a good question. I could probably look on Letterboxd and tell you exactly why. It might have been for a movie club that we were both a part of. It might
Mm,
have come up, but I've been like hearing about it. I mean, it's one of those films you hear about for a while. It's one that is not quite at like the top tier Godfather range of like notoriety. It's like like normal people off the street might not know the title by now.
mhm,
I'm actually looking right now. I watched it for the first time on April 30th, 2021 for the movie club that we are part of. So yeah,
okay.
it was the theme was classics. And I literally wrote in my review that moment where you realize you've been watching one of your favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those films where when you watch it, you're like, why isn't this the movie that I've been watching since I was a kid every single
Mhm,
year? But yeah, it was one of those films I knew about it. I knew Billy Wilder, obviously, because Sunset Boulevard is very popular, and I knew him from
mhm.
that. But this might have been the first movie I saw of his. I think I even
Oh,
saw this before
nice,
Sunset Boulevard, because
nice.
I remember just watching it and being so just taken by it. But yeah, it was very recently, like this decade, which is crazy for me because you would think favorite movies of all time. You know, I've been watching this since I was a kid, but this is one that like I came to late in life, but is one that is just so good that it can be one of the best movies of all time, even if you've only seen it twice or three times within the span of the
Right.
last 5 years. You know.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely understand. My experience with it. Well, my first Billy Wilder movie I ever saw was Some Like a Hot, but I didn't know I didn't know it was Billy
Okay.
Wilder.
Hmm.
Like, but that's the movie that I'm like I watched as I was growing up. Like that's kind of the one that was in my life.
Hmm.
And then as I got older, I watched some other ones, but I watched um Double Indemnity and this one and The Apartment back to back for the first time. Like
Ooh,
not maybe
what
not the
a
same
double
day, like
feature.
maybe
Oh,
two day. Like I think it
yeah.
may have been over 2 days, but it was like right there. And yes, what a double feature because as soon as because I watched Double Indemnity first and I loved it, and then I watched The Apartment, and after I watched The Apartment, I went, what a if I ever program a film festival. These
Yeah.
two movies are going beside each other because they're both about insurance guys who fall in love with a woman who's already taken. They just have very different different
Right.
paths.
Well, and that's why Billy Wilder's so great too, is because is this chameleon, but it
Yeah.
also feels like a Billy Wilder movie when you're
Mhm.
watching it. There's something about the language that's a little more heightened. The direction, even if it's like a basic like rom com, I don't want to call it basic, obviously, but like a
Right, right.
rom com template as opposed to a noir, as opposed to this big like costume period piece. Not period piece, but like this big grand
Yeah.
costume epic like Sunset Boulevard. It still feels like Billy Wilder, but it also feels so different at the same time, which is so great. Like it's a chameleon who's also an auteur all at once, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing that not a lot of directors possess. It's either you're looking at something, you're like, yep, that's that director, or it's like, wow, that person could do literally anything. I wouldn't have even known it was an Ang Lee film, for example, who is
Right.
also one of those chameleons. But this one, I'm like, no, it's Billy Wilder, but it's also so different from any of the other Billy
Right.
Wilder things, which is why he's your favorite, why he's one of mine. Yeah,
Right. Well, because there's an energy that comes with a Billy
that's it.
Wilder
It's the
movie
energy. Mhm.
that you can feel. It's palpable. Like
Yeah, even
it's
Ninochka, which is one he didn't direct, but he wrote. Like I cover that for Picture This, 1939, in a year with like Wizard of Oz and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and Gone with the Wind. It stood out because there's that energy, like you're talking about.
Mhm,
Even in the writing, it's the energy, the pacing, but also the juggling of tones. It's not
mhm.
one thing. It kind
Right.
of takes on a bunch of different styles and palettes all within itself.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. So, the apartment. Why? When I think back to like why is this one of all of his films on my top five
Hmm.
compared to because I love everything I've ever seen from him. I haven't seen
Right.
every movie. That's
Right.
something I
It's
plan
like
to
your
remedy.
favorite director.
But
Like what makes this one the best of so
right,
many works by the guy who you think could do no wrong.
right, and so like when I consider that, I don't know exactly what it is. I can't say for sure exactly what it is, except that well, I can say that because this one every time I rewatch it, like first time I watched it, I was like, this is incredible. I love this movie. Second time I watched it, I went, I think this is one of my favorite movies ever. And then like the third time I watched it, it went on to my top five. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of how it went. And so uh this I can't exactly put my finger on what makes this one different than the other ones, but there is something about every time I watch it, I'm like, I know I'm in the presence of one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm,
Um, I will say that there is something about the mental health aspect that I think I relate to a lot.
yeah, yeah.
That I think that really works for me, and also because I'm this comedic funny guy who has a lot of demons and has a lot of mental health issues, outside of that, like I'm clinically depressed. Like I I have some dark days, but I also try to keep that my comedic self out there.
Yeah.
I think that might be part of it as well, because deep down this film is extremely dark, but there's this layer of of comedy and this layer of light over the top of it that isn't trying to hide the darkness in it, but it does make it a little bit. It makes it alleviates the darkness a little bit, which I
Yeah.
think is just how my life works. So I think that might be part of why
Yeah.
I connect to this movie so well.
Yeah, I mean, you were asking the question earlier, and I know you've answered it for yourself already. But it's like, what makes this one the one? And I think it is the familiarity. I think it's the fact that it is this heightened like tone and pacing and energy that you don't see in a lot of other movies, but it is still handling relatable things. Whereas like
Mhm.
Sunset Boulevard, like it's very relatable if you are an aging actress who's struggling to come to terms with your aging and trying to cling on to the past. It
Right.
could be broader, not just have to be an actress, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then like Double Indemnity, like not everyone's committed murder, so it's like,
Right.
but this is one where I feel like everyone has at least had those days, even if they're not clinically depressed, like they are at least having those days and those feels. And what I think
Mhm.
is most impactful for this movie is something that I think is a big topic of conversation with every movie that's not directly about Christmas, but the fact that it is a holiday film as well,
Mhm.
because there's also that idea of the holidays being that time where you do reflect on the year ahead and you do reflect on the year that passed and you think about all the things that you've gone through, and usually your brain goes to the worst thing first. It usually goes
Mhm.
to, this was a shitty year, I lost this person in my life, I did this thing, I lost my job here, I did this, I did that, and then you're like, but it was a great year because of this. And I feel like that's this movie as well. It's like,
Mhm.
this is all the shit that's piling up on the holidays that's giving you this bleakness, this sense of doubt and the sense of depression, but also understanding that there are things that can pull you through it. And I think
Mhm.
that's why I love holiday movies like this, as opposed to something that is 100% cheery and like Christmas spirit, hoorah, because I think you need to be able to acknowledge everything. And I think the best holiday movies are the ones that do kind of live in that darker, depressing feel, because that is what other people are feeling at that time of year. I mean, they're
Right.
also spending a lot more money at that time of year, and they're like worried, oh shit, am I going to be able to get all my presents for all my people I need to get? Because now it's become this monetary, physical thing, not just your heart. Now you have to put $1 to your name and your love. And I think
Mhm.
that's also part of it too. And the idea that he wants to be giving this time of year, but he's also in the cold, he's shivering, he's sneezing, he's getting sick, because he's just a good guy who wants to do well for others on the holidays, but he hasn't been able to kind of come to terms with his own
Right.
problems and his own doubts and depressions and stuff too. So I think that's also why it's so accessible and why it is a lot of people's favorite of his, even though it's not the most genre specific or the biggest swing. It's still
Mhm.
the most familiar, and it has a lot of things to say that everyone can relate to. Even if you're not celebrating Christmas, you still
Mhm.
know that time of year. Seasonal depression, just
Mhm.
all those things. Just being in a company, being in an office space at the time of the holidays, like that is stuff that every single person can tap into, regardless
Mhm.
of profession, regardless of gender, race, age. So I think that's kind of why this film specifically talks so universally to so
Right.
many. Yeah.
Right. And I agree. I think you're spot on with that. I would also like to say that I think that there's something about these two characters, Cece Baxter and Miss Kubelik, that that really is number one, really relatable, but also, but there's something that they both share, which is that they both are these damaged people who don't think they deserve better,
Yeah.
and the better they find is with each other. And that is the thing that I always find interesting. We do have a friend who did not love this movie the first time she watched it. She's like, well, this the and she knows who I'm talking about, so she can say in the comments. I just don't want
I
to
kind of
throw
want to
her
know
out
who
there.
you're talking about, but I will not let you shout her out right now because I don't want to put her on blast. But
But we have a friend who did not love this the first time, and one of her complaints was like, these two people don't need to be together. This is very toxic. And
mm,
which I would say, like, part of me is like, okay, I could see that, but the other part of me is saying like, uh, maybe them being together isn't the most ideal necessarily, but it is these two people who don't believe they deserve each other, but they are the people that they fit so well, they deserve better than their current station. And
Right.
that's the thing that I think really works with this relationship.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you don't deserve each other. Maybe it's toxic, but like look where you came from. Like look at
Right.
what you were doing. You know, you were renting out your apartment for sex, for people to just abuse you to climb a corporate ladder, and the other one was getting with the married boss. Like I think that's kind of where it's like, yeah, I think it's one of those things where yes, this situation may not be the ideal one, but it's better than
Mhm.
what you had. And I think
It-
that's kind of where we're all at the end of the year and the holidays. We're all like, you know what? This year sucked, but at least we're going into the next year with some optimism. And I think that's kind of
right.
what it is. Like every year is the worst year because bad shit happens every year. I mean, I every year
Right.
I say, oh, it only gets harder because as you get older, your favorite celebrities, more and more of them pass away. And as you get older, a lot of your family members, they're older and older, they pass away. Like, I think that's the thing. It's easier as you're younger. It gets harder every year. No year is
Mhm.
easier than the one that came before it. So I think that's also another idea that this film conquers. And not saying that's one of the same. Like, obviously,
Right.
I think 2 years ago was the worst year of my life, and I still don't think anything will top that. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
every year sucks, and every year also has optimism at the end of it. You know, there's a light
Right.
at the end of every tunnel.
Right. No, yeah, I absolutely. And I think that that's the important thing is that this ends on such a high note.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important. Like it could have ended on less certain, like a less had a less certain ending. Um and that would have been fine, and it still would have been a great movie. But I think that the fact that it ends on a very hopeful note,
Mhm.
them sitting together and playing gin rummy,
And that's the thing. It's not a kiss. It's not
right.
this declaration of I want to be with you forever either. And I think that's also again why it's so familiar because that's
Hmm.
not how life works. Life doesn't work where you're gonna run into the door and say marry me and that's
Hmm.
it. Like it is this really natural part of life of just like let's sit and play gin rummy because that is the that is the heat. That is the connection. You know.
Right. And maybe these two don't work out forever. I personally I really hope they do. I
Yeah,
hope
I
they
do. Too.
did. But maybe they
Let's
don't
write a
work
sequel.
out. Maybe they don't work out forever, but I don't care. Like I think that whether they work out or not, they needed each other in that moment, and
Yeah.
that is why it's important that
Mhm.
they found each other because they needed each other.
Yeah.
Um, which might be a toxic thing, but I do think that
Yeah.
sometimes you
Right.
need that.
And me and
Yeah.
you are the kings of tangents, so I'm just gonna go on one very quickly. But like my hot takes are always these like animated sequels that everyone's like, wait, you like Ralph Breaks the Internet just as much, or if not more, than Wreck-It Ralph? You like Toy Story 4 just as much, if not more, than the other Toy Stories? It's because it's like this friendship that you're like, no, they're always meant to be friends forever. But they end on notes, and sorry to spoil these movies for people, but it ends on notes where like Woody and Buzz are not together at the end of Toy Story 4. Vanellope and Ralph are not together at the end of Ralph Breaks the Internet, but they needed to be together in that moment to get through that thing. And they
Mhm,
always have that, even if you're
mhm,
not physically together. I mean, look at what we're doing right now. We're recording in February because I'm not going to be here in October physically to do this podcast with you. But it's the idea of like, you are where you are meant to be in the moment. And because it is this end of the year, New Year's Christmas movie, it's also playing with that idea of like, yeah, we don't know what the future has in store for you, but like you needed each other when it mattered most, and you can go your separate ways, and you can be the Ralph and Vanellope who cherish that forever, but aren't meant to live together forever.
mhm,
But maybe you are, and I think
mhm,
it's nice that this film doesn't offer that answer. But I love
mhm,
films like that where it's not just they lived happily ever after. It's like though they individually did live happily ever after, it doesn't need to be with that other person. But with being with that other person, it helped them individually live happily ever after, which I think is a much more empowering message than you're gonna get married, have kids, live have fabulous life, die, and be happy. It's like no, that's like that's not always how life works.
it reminds me of another movie that is a favorite of both of ours. And for everybody watching, I'm going to spoil a movie called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for a second.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't bring my
but
tissues.
how that movie ends, and for everybody out there, I'm sure I don't know if I've covered this movie on this series yet because again, this is February. Between February and October, maybe I did. But um, it is my favorite screenplay ever written. I've read it many times. I've seen that movie many times. It's just my favorite screenplay. Um, but when you get to the end of that movie, and they just went through this whole ordeal to forget each other, even though they were trying to, he was trying to undo it or whatever, or they were trying to undo it through the thing, but they just went through this whole thing of trying to forget each other, and then you get to the end and they meet again, and it's like, okay, we know that this doesn't work out, but I love the hopeful note of trying anyway. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's the
love that
journey,
they
not
are
the destination.
right. I love that even if the results are exactly the same, they that is something that they are going to try anyway.
Yeah,
And
everyone you encounter is meant to be in your life one way or another. Your
right,
worst enemies and your biggest loves. Like that is
right.
something important, and that's something I've even been going through personally as well. Someone I was with for 7 years is engaged, maybe
Mhm.
married by the time this is coming out, and like that's something I've had to struggle with the last few years. Is like having to like kind of reconcile with that, but also knowing like if they weren't part of my life, I wouldn't be the same guy I am today, and I'd be maybe not as good a person I am, not because of directly that person, but because we had those experiences. And I think that's a lot of what the apartment is saying as well, is like it's the experiences you have with these people that really shape who you are, shape what you're going to be, and something as mundane as this one night in this one apartment can turn into something so life-changing and pivotal. And I think that's also something that is true to life as well, is that the pivotal moments in life don't always come from your graduations and the births of your kids and your marriages. They can, but they also could come from, oh, what was that one night where I was at that bar and I talked to that one person? Or what was that one night where, I my phone died and I need to find my way home? And like these little pockets of life that you don't think are big at the moment, but end up being the bigger things in life that you reflect on. And I think this is also that film in a way, like, kind of focusing on something that, the only people who knew this happened were the people who were very centralized around the conflict. This was not a war film where hundreds of people are affected by this. It's like a
Mhm.
small group of maybe 10 characters at most, but like
Right.
for those 10 characters, this night changed their life forever, or this
Mhm.
sequence of nights. I forget how long spanning this
It's
film.
between the bulk of the movie is between Christmas Day and New
Right.
Year's Day.
So about a week,
Yeah.
like this whole week, even these supporting characters, the doctor, how did this change from McMurray's character? How did this change the other, subsequent supporting figures in this whole thing as well? Like I
Mhm.
think that's also fun to examine, because it kind of goes to that holiday thing as well, of like not necessarily knowing what everyone's different situation is, but all coming together for something, even if it's as silly and crazy as this. And it's dark, but it's also silly, and that's another thing with the tones of Billy Wilder that's
Mhm.
so great.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I absolutely agree. I think that the hold on. What was the thing you said that I was
I said a
responding
lot.
to?
Listen, this is why you probably enjoyed the break you've had with me, because I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'm sure I don't enjoy this break. The Who knows? Who knows where we are right now?
Yeah.
Um, but the whew, oh, the effect it had on people's lives, and how uh I don't remember what I was gonna say. It doesn't matter. I don't know if I'm gonna cut that, but that's fine.
I like just the pondering. I listen. This is only a one-off episode. You're not compiling these with others. Like let it sit, let it breathe, let it ruminate. Billy Wilder's films go a mile a minute. Yours don't have to.
Right, absolutely. Um, but yeah, oh, I do remember a thing that I was going
Yay!
to say.
See, that's it. Train of thought.
I don't know if it was directly to that, but it was the thing that I thought about.
Okay.
I love that moment at the end of the movie where he gives uh uh Fred McMurray's the wrong key,
Mm,
or the right key, but the key to the executive washroom instead of the key to his house, uh or to his apartment, um because he is in that moment finally choosing to stand up for Miss Kubelik, instead of using that to advance his career. Like,
mm,
that's the moment where, yes, there's a lot of bad decisions that he makes and everybody makes in this movie, but at that moment when he has everything, he finally gets that office that he wants. He's in a matter of a week, he has had two promotions,
mm.
and now he is right next door to the boss. He gets the executive washroom key. Everything that he has been working for with this apartment has come to fruition. And finally, at that moment, he stands up for Miss Kubelik, and that is what we're working toward. That is the moral of this whole story. Like, you get to that point. that complicated characters are great, and I think that people are often too hard on characters who don't always make the right decisions. And I think in this moment, uh, it well, it was worth all the bad decisions he made up to that point to get to that moment.
Mhm.
Because if he had stood up at any other time, it would not have affected his life in the way it does in that moment.
Right.
And that would have been better for him. But as an audience, we're watching that and we go, okay, he is giving up everything at this moment for her. And I think
Mhm.
that's amazing. I think
Yeah.
that's incredible.
And
And
it
not
all
even to
goes
get her, not even to get her,
right.
which was the thing that he was doing all along. It was to stand up for her in that moment, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love.
No, I love that. Also, that big climactic moment, like you said, is not about getting the girl. It's just about sticking up for what's right and standing up
Mhm.
for yourself in a way. It's like almost your own kind of climactic, peak of character, whatever. But yeah, you said it perfectly. I think it all goes back to the thesis of relatability in that sense too. Like I think that is kind of what we've kind of cracked here is like, why is the apartment so universal? Why is it so beautiful? Why do you keep coming back to it? Why do I keep coming back to it? It's because of relatability, and it's
Mhm.
just the way we're able to tap in and really connect with these characters, connect with these circumstances. And for me and you both as well, being I would like to think funny people. It's also great to see a character who's not just this strapping leading man either. Like Jack Lemmon has a little bit of an aloofness, a comedic sensibility that is unlike most heroic leading men, which I think is funny
Mhm.
because like this is the side character in most movies. He's the funny
Right.
guy at the office who you're like, hey you, and he's like, hey, but here it's like, no, you're the lead. Here you're the guy who's
Right.
in command, which is also something that makes him more relatable. And same with Shirley MacLaine's character. It's like, she is the one who, she's not your traditional ingenue. And I like that about it. Also because of the mental health stuff, which is another thing that we've talked about, but like it's so important to stress is this is 1960 and they're having these
Right.
conversations, which is something that, even now in 2025, how many movies are we getting that are tackling mental health and aren't just misery porn about
Mhm.
people who struggling with mental health? How many movies are not just like these Netflix dramas about suicide? Like I really like how it's there's something deeper and more relatable. There it is. Like I mean, take a
Mhm.
shot every time we say
Right.
relatable, but that is it.
Right. No, I that was one thing while I was watching it this time that I thought about, which was that um in general, suicide and the self-harm and stuff like that is not a laughing matter. But if you can use it as part, if you can use it in your comedy in a respectful way that makes sense, it's not, you know, talking down to people who feel that way, or and not glorifying it or anything like that. I think it's brilliant. There's a movie called with John Cusack called Better Off Dead, and it throughout the movie he keeps trying and failing to kill himself,
Mm,
and that is a true story, or not the whole movie, but that that the basis of that is the director, the guy who, or the writer, maybe they're the same person, I'm not sure. I think it's the writer, and maybe director. Anyway, that person used to do that like that.
right. It's autobiographical.
He would attempt
Mhm.
those type of things, and his failed attempts used to make his friends laugh. So he wrote that movie as a result of that. And I think that it does. I think that it's done in a respectful way, especially because it is autobiographical.
Mm,
In this one, there are some jokes related to that, like when he's like when he opens the window and he's like, "Don't get any ideas. We're only one floor up. You'll only break your leg or whatever." Like
right.
that kind of stuff. I think that because the writing in this is so sharp, it never feels disrespectful to
Right.
what they're doing, even though it is
Yeah.
comedy, which I
Mhm.
really dig.
Yeah, and characters are resembling real life, and real life people are cynical in that way. Like I make
Yeah.
those kind of jokes all the time. I'm also
Hmm.
someone who has struggles with depression sometimes. I'm also someone who's had my ruts and demons. And I think, that's just natural about funny people is they use their traumas to laugh it off. How many comedians do we hear about when they've sadly taken their own lives find out all these things about them being depressed that you never would have known because they're funny. They're the guys who make people laugh. How could they be hurting? And it's like, no, like those are the people who are probably hurting the most because the laughter is a compensation. It's a way of like trying to escape those demons as well. I'm just going to make people laugh and feed off of that energy. But then you can only feed off of that for so long. And I think that's also another thing that this movie's tapping into and why it is so real, it is so raw, and why it's not offensive, like you said. Like it probably pushes the envelope at times, especially for 1960. But I do think, because it doesn't cross that line either, because that is what people do. They make weird jokes like that, and maybe they do feel icky about it too. Like that's the thing, is like we all make weird comments that were immediately like, oh, that was in bad taste, that was in poor taste. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad line of dialogue in a movie, because if it's an emulation of real life, it's like you said about like the flawed protagonist, about like how people have this stigma of like disliking characters that they don't agree with. Like, you're doing something I wouldn't do, you are a terrible character. It's like, no, it can make you enjoy the movie less. Like, I don't enjoy Midnight in Paris because I just cannot stand Rachel McAdams' character in that, and it isn't enough for me to get past. But there are some movies where I'm like, no, you're doing a terrible thing, but I understand why you're doing it, and like I maybe I'd do the same, like maybe I'd make the same jokes that are a little bit out of, off base, so, I think that's kind of also a power of this film too, is again, realisticness, relatability, the way Billy Wilder is able to teeter that line of tone so well, of like making you laugh one second, making you cry another, because whoo, doggy. But then when he wants you to hit those dramatic heights, and when he wants to get that teary moment from you, then he can, because he's earned it, because the characters are still relatable enough to where, yes, they're cracking jokes and there's funny circumstances and he's straining pasta with a tennis racket, but then also you're weeping the next moment because of something else that happens. And that's just the bad balance of tone and the power of tone in this.
All right. Well, that was The Apartment by Billy Wilder, one of my top 5 favorite movies. Dylan, your first time on 5225.
I know.
How was it?
It was great, and I don't know if this will be my first and last, because I don't know how often you'll have guests, because it is 52, so this will end. But I do hope maybe you do another one of these challenges. Maybe it's inspired me to do one of these, but I just love that I was part of this, because it's easy to talk about your favorite movie, and it's easy to like just kind of open up about the things you love about it. But I think getting to share that with someone else is really fun too. And you've been sharing these videos for so long with us, the audience. So I'm very grateful that you've allowed me to come on and hear it firsthand, as opposed to the guy behind the laptop who's like, oh my gosh, I agree, just sitting at my keyboard. It's nice to actually get to hear that passion, because you'd say it every week, even the films that aren't your top 5. Like I think back all the way back to your Fiddler on the Roof review, of how just awesome, like hearing you say all the things you loved about it made me emotional listening to it, and now getting to actually converse with you and get to like bounce those ideas around, because this is a film I have in my top 10, maybe not my top 5, my top 10, and it's one that I love talking about with people, even though you have heard me talk about this film before. I've heard you talk about this film before, but getting to like sit down and just like devote the time to a masterpiece has been really, really worthwhile. And how much this show has, I've enjoyed watching this and your channel and listening to you speak about things. So getting to be like the front row audience member to it, months ahead of everyone else too, in February, people, that's been a real gift, and getting to share that this conversation with you is a real gift, and thank you for including me as part of this. This is the honor of a lifetime, for sure.
Well, thank you for coming on. You're Dylan is my biggest cheerleader, especially for the show.
I got my pom-poms, but they're all straight.
Yeah. You should see him in his little skirt, but
my tennis shoes. Yeah. Oh god.
No, he's always there, especially for this show. He's always very, very positive, and whether it's true or not, he always he always tells me how excited he is about the show. So it's
the excitement about the show is always true. Do I always agree with you? No, but it's okay.
Oh, that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. No, yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you were able to come on the show. In real time, where we are right now, the Oscars are in 3 days.
Oh, should we make bold predictions that like are gonna look so bad in retrospect?
We're gonna make some bold predictions here. Okay. Well, first let's say what is going to be Best Picture.
I'm gonna stick with Anora. And the thing is, I haven't even filmed my final Oscar predictions at the time of recording this, so I'm gonna stick with Anora. But like, yeah, it's Anora. I think it's Anora.
See, the question is, I think it's Anora too, but do I want to say the substance just in case
I think you
my
should say it now
dreams come
because in
true?
October, if the substance has won, you will still not let it let it die that you predicted it. So I think you should predict it here to even then when people have forgotten that you predicted it, be like, just a reminder in case you forgot. Boom, video. And
Fine.
then if it doesn't win, you could edit it
The substance. It's
out.
gonna win.
And the Oscar goes to? Are they playing us off?
No. Well, maybe. Anora.
Nice.
All right. So do you have any upset? Like, what do you think the biggest upset's gonna be?
I think I'm not predicting it, but I think if there's any acting category we're all going to be stunned about, it's going to be when Isabella Rossellini beats Zoe Saldana. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just reading anonymous ballads. I'm like, ooh. Also, as much as I do want the other one to win, I am predicting Porcelain War to upset No Other Land. That's my kind of
Really?
big upset prediction. Even though not really an upset because No Other Land hasn't won any industry awards, Porcelain War has, but everyone thinks the passion's behind No Other Land. But I don't know. I that's one where I'm like, I'm confident in that upset. And then just one for funsies. I think Diane Warren's winning. I think she's gonna win.
Okay.
Finally. I think Amelia Perez has enough backlash. Like let's let Diane Warren finally get hers and then she can
Maybe
go.
it's
not
maybe
go
it's not.
like go,
No.
but like then she can like
But
stop
maybe she
writing songs
stops
for
making
Oscars.
songs for bad movies.
Yeah, or she gets an Oscar and Christopher Nolan's like, hey, the Odyssey, you want to write the credits song? And then it's like, okay, well, she's writing the song for the Best Picture winning Odyssey. That's another prediction I'll make, but that's gonna happen years from now. But
yeah.
Odyssey's gonna sweep the Oscars.
Oh, probably. Okay, so my it surprised me what you say about Porcelain War because I hadn't even considered like No Other Land feels like it feels like
Yeah.
Why is there anybody else going to be there?
But
But
they love
Porcelain-
they reward Ukrainian docs the past 2 years, Navalny and 20 Days in Mariupol. So I don't know. I feel like the Ukraine war is more of like a universal issue that they can all get behind, whereas No Other Land may have them split. I don't know. It's so weird to talk about because it's already happened. People know, and they're all
Right.
like, "Dylan,
No,
you're
no,
crazy."
We're, that's very interesting. That would be what's funny is, and I may have said this in the past now for what people are watching, but what's funny is that everybody knows my love of like I'm an easy mark for people rising up against oppressors. I'm such an easy mark for that. And usually I can find, at least one of the documentaries is about that. And usually that's like, okay, this one's my favorite.
And they're all about that.
They're all about that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny because literally right before this is so much inside baseball that people are probably logged off by now. But now this is just me and you, Matt. But like literally a half hour before we recorded this, I was doing my Death Race video for part 3, which was the documentaries International and Animated, which will be airing the night after we record this. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy. This is time jumping is so fun. I bet Harry's gonna find the Dementors and Hermione's gonna punch Malfoy. And sorry, I'm recalling Prisoner of Azkaban.
So my big upset prediction is going to be hold on, I think my big upset prediction is going to be Chalamet beating Adrian Brody.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily it's going to happen, but if I think that's going to be, if that is, I think it's close.
Oh boy. Okay.
My I think that Demi Moore has an Oscar now. Here in October, she's looking at her Oscar here in October.
You know what would be really exciting that I would love to predict?
What's that?
Let's Barbara Streisand it. We're gonna get a tie for Best Actress this year, and then we're both gonna be right, and it's gonna be great, and we're gonna be happy, and the Anora's gonna win, and Substance is gonna win. Like that would
be awesome. That would be awesome. I would be very happy with that.
If that happens, then like I wish I put money on it because people are gonna be kicking me for not predicting it.
Here is something that is no longer a huge upset, but was when I first predicted this, and that is that I'm Still Here is going to win Best International.
Yeah,
it's not an upset anymore, but it was.
Right. Honestly, I might predict Amelia Perez just because now that is the upset when the movie that got the most nominations on the day should be winning that. I might just predict it anyway, just to be the upset being the obvious pick,
I don't know.
And the Oscar goes to I'm still here, Brazil.
But
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Oscars happened.
they're like Oscars. Wait, what are the Amelia Perez? That was this year? Yeah.
5 months ago, the
You forgot
Oscars
about it.
happened, and you just heard our wild swings at it.
This is gonna be so fun to look back on. Oh, I can't wait.
Anyway, thank you for joining us on 5225. In the comments, talk to us about what are your favorites of my favorite movies. What are your favorite Billy Wilder movies? I don't remember what the next week's is, so I'm sure I'll have to announce that when it's closer on one of the other videos, because I don't know right now. Talk to me in the comments. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, Matt.